The late 19th century, America was transforming into an industrial titan. Factories rose across the landscape. New technologies fueled rapid expansion. The driving force? Endless human labor. America's cities swelled, bursting at the seams with workers. Streets became a cacophony of sound and fury. The wealth generated was staggering, but it was enjoyed by a select few. Captains of industry amassed vast fortunes. Their factories operated day and night. For the men, women, and children who labored in these factories, life was harsh and grueling. They toiled long hours, often 12 to 16 hours a day. Child labor was rampant. Safety regulations were practically non-existent. Wages were meager, barely enough to survive. Amidst the hardship, a spirit of defiance began to flicker. For America's industrial workforce, each day began and ended with the factory whistle. 6 days a week, they marched to the demands of industry. The air hung heavy with the din of machinery. The pace was relentless, driven by the machines. Workers snatched moments to eat amidst the grime and clamor. The dangers of factory work were ever present. Machines maimed and killed regularly. Industrial accidents were commonplace. Miners faced cave-ins, explosions, and black lung disease. They returned home exhausted to unsanitary tenements. Child labor was a shameful reality of the industrial age. Children, some as young as 6, toiled in factories, mills, and mines. They were denied education and a better future. Many were maimed or killed in industrial accidents. The workers were not passive victims. They yearned for a better life, free from tyranny and fear. Workers began to organize, forming secret societies. Their hope lay in collective action. They demanded fair wages, reasonable hours, and safety. As the 19th century progressed, the plight of America's workers grew desperate. From this inequality, a new force emerged, the labor union. In 1869, Uriah Stevens founded the Knights of Labor. Initially, the Knights operated as a secret fraternal organization. The Knights of Labor's platform was a radical departure from the Gilded Age. Central to their platform was the demand for an 8-hour workday. Workers deserved time for leisure, education, and family. They campaigned for equal pay for equal work. They vehemently opposed child labor. By the mid-1880s, the Knights of Labor had reached their zenith. Their membership swelled to over 700,000. On May 4, 1886, a bomb exploded during a labor demonstration in Chicago's Haymarket Square. The Haymarket riot had a chilling effect on the labor movement. The Haymarket tragedy dealt a devastating blow to the Knights of Labor, effectively ending their reign as the leading voice of American labor. Their vision of an 8-hour workday, of equal pay for equal work, and an end to child labor. The Haymarket tragedy of 1886 cast a long shadow over the American labor movement. The Knights of Labor lay in ruins, but a new force for change was taking shape. In December, labor leaders met in Columbus, Ohio. From this gathering emerged the American Federation of Labor, or AFL. The AFL focused on organizing skilled tradesmen. At the helm of this new labor federation stood Samuel Gompers, a cigar maker by trade and a labor leader of uncommon vision and tenacity. Gompers was a pragmatist, not an ideologue. He rejected the Knights' utopian vision of a worker-led society, believing instead in the power of collective bargaining to achieve concrete gains for workers. Gompers' leadership was instrumental in shaping the AFL's strategy and guiding it through the turbulent early years of the 20th century. Samuel Gompers, a cigar maker by trade, led the new labor federation. He was a pragmatist, not an ideologue. Gompers believed in collective bargaining for workers' gains. His leadership shaped the AFL's strategy and guided it through the early 20th century. At the heart of the AFL's strategy lay collective bargaining. Gompers believed it balanced power between labor and capital. Skilled workers held a stronger bargaining position. Craft unions exerted significant economic pressure. If negotiations failed, the AFL called for strikes. The early 20th century saw intense labor unrest. The AFL's strategy of organizing skilled workers began to yield results. By World War I, the AFL was the most powerful labor organization. They secured higher wages, shorter hours, and better conditions. The AFL emerged as a powerful force in American society. The year is 1892. The setting, Homestead, Pennsylvania, dominated by the imposing Homestead Steel Mill, owned by Carnegie Steel. Workers, represented by the Amalgamated Association, had enjoyed peace. But Henry Clay Frick's arrival signaled a dramatic shift. The stage was set for a confrontation that would send shockwaves. On June 29, 1892, the workers at Homestead went on strike. The mill, once a hive of activity, fell silent. The town, dependent on the mill, was cleaved in two. Families were divided, neighbors turned against each other. Workers established picket lines, vowing to prevent scabs from taking their jobs. Frick had a plan to break the strike. He hired Pinkerton detectives to protect the mill and remove strikers by force. The arrival of the Pinkertons on July 6th ignited a firestorm. Workers gathered at the riverbank, determined to repel the invaders. A day-long battle ensued between the Pinkertons and the workers. The echoes of the Homestead strike reverberated far beyond Homestead, Pennsylvania. In 1894, a larger labor conflict paralyzed the railways. The Pullman strike began in Pullman, Illinois. Pullman controlled every aspect of workers' lives. The Panic of 1893 led to layoffs and wage cuts. This ignited worker resentment. Led by Eugene V. Debs, the strike began on May 11, 1894. The strike spread, halting the nation's railways. The Pullman strike brought labor unrest to the forefront of American consciousness. Public opinion shifted as the strike dragged on. The government declared the strike illegal. President Cleveland sent federal troops to Chicago. The arrival of troops led to violence. The strike was broken. Debs was arrested. The Pullman strike impacted the American labor movement. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were marked by intense labor unrest and a growing awareness of the plight of the working class. The brutal realities of industrial life and the use of child labor could no longer be ignored. The tide was beginning to turn. Social reformers, religious leaders, and journalists began to speak out against industrial capitalism, demanding a more just society. Writers like Upton Sinclair exposed horrific conditions in the meatpacking industry. Their words brought the plight of the working class to life. The labor movement planted the seeds of change. Their struggles and sacrifices began to resonate with a wider audience. The stage was set for labor reform, with the government taking a more active role in regulating the workplace and protecting workers' rights. The Progressive Era saw a surge in reform movements across the United States. Reformers tackled political corruption, urban poverty, and workers' rights. Politicians like Theodore Roosevelt led the charge, advocating for social justice. Labor leaders allied with progressives to protect workers' rights. State legislatures enacted laws on child labor and workplace safety. In 1914, the labor movement celebrated a major victory with the Clayton Antitrust Act. Signed by President Woodrow Wilson, it aimed to strengthen the ineffective Sherman Antitrust Act. Section 6 exempted unions from antitrust laws. This provided unions a legal shield to organize and bargain collectively. The labor reforms of the Progressive Era marked a turning point in the relationship between labor and capital in the United States. The federal government took an active role in regulating the workplace, enacting laws to protect workers' rights and limit child labor. The struggle for workers' rights, however, was far from over. The labor movement faced new challenges, from anti-union sentiment during the Red Scare to the Great Depression. Yet the seeds of change had been sown. The New Deal era saw landmark labor legislation like the National Labor Relations Act of 1935, guaranteeing workers the right to organize. The fight for workers' rights emerged as a powerful force for social progress, shaping the nation's conscience. The rise of labor unions in the late 19th and early 20th centuries stands as a testament to the indomitable spirit of working men and women. From the ashes of industrial strife emerged a movement that transformed the American workplace. The 8-hour workday, once a radical demand, is now the norm. Child labor, once a shameful reality, is now largely relegated to the history books. Workplace safety regulations now protect millions from industrial hazards. These victories were the result of decades of struggle. acts of courage and sacrifice by working people who stood up to the unchecked power of industrialists. The struggle for workers' rights is far from over. While work has changed since the Homestead and Pullman strikes, the challenges remain similar. In today's globalized economy, workers often face precarious employment situations. The fight for fair wages, healthcare, and secure retirement is urgent. Automation and the gig economy have eroded traditional protections. Anti-unionism continues to undermine collective bargaining power. Right-to-work laws have weakened unions, leading to lower wages and fewer benefits. The fight for workers' rights has always been intertwined with broader struggles for social and economic justice. The labor movement has played a pivotal role in advancing human dignity and opportunity for all. A renewed labor movement is essential to meeting the challenges of the 21st century. We need a movement that embraces the changing nature of work and mobilizes the collective power of workers. When workers stand together, they possess the power to reshape the world. The fight for workers' rights is a fight for the soul of our nation. The march for economic justice continues.